Welcome to the Trees and Lines podcast, where we discuss fresh perspectives on utility vegetation management. Don't forget to follow along on LinkedIn for the latest news. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Trees and Lines podcast. Brian Sprinkle is going to join me today as a substitute host for Tej Singh. And together we welcome Jordan Overbee, CEO of Piedmont EMC. And welcome, Jordan. Thank you for volunteering to come on board.
Oh, I appreciate the invitation. Thanks for having me.
Jordan, we were talking earlier. You have a pretty interesting career path, particularly in the last several years. Would you mind just recapping that? Tell us how you got to where you are today, and maybe tell us a little bit about Piedmont EMC.
Okay, sure. I appreciate that. Yeah, I told you earlier, my friends make fun and say that I've got enough hard hats to fill an entire office, but I guess that's what helped me get to here. But I've been with Piedmont EMC for 2 years on July 15th, and so it's been fun. A lot of changes here. I started my career at an IOU, which was Progress Energy at the time in North Carolina, which then merged with Duke Energy, which is more well known, obviously, now. After that, I left and worked my longest stint, I guess, a little over 7 years with Wake Electric right outside Raleigh, North Carolina, one of the fastest growing in the nation. And then I worked as a consultant up and down the East Coast, mostly for about 2.5 years, working with quite a few cooperatives, mostly on the engineering side, which is my background, actually.
Good. Very good. So you come in as a CEO. You look at the company. What's the priorities, or what do you see for the future?
I still have to laugh every time somebody says that because I never would have thought I would have gotten here. So, but anyway, for us, the future is, for our cooperative, I think everybody and the board recognized that we're a little bit behind in quite a few areas. But the exciting part is in the first 2 years, the employees have really embraced change. They've really been excited about being innovative because we go to these conferences and meetings and everything else, and cooperatives really love having meetings and sharing ideas, which is great. But we see what everybody else is doing, and it's funny. In my first week, some of the line personnel, which are some of the most experienced now, still remember when I was teaching classes back in 2014 to line personnel for our state about utilizing technology for outage restoration, for predicting outages. And they laughed. They said they came back and said, "When can we have that?" And the joke is that now that I'm here, we're putting all that stuff in. So it only took 12 years, but we're now using some of these technologies, putting them in, upgrading ours, and the employees are excited because hopefully it would reduce some stress. When you're out there working, being out there by yourself and not utilizing technologies that you know are available is a little frustrating. So,
Expensive and time consuming. That transition, I presume.
Yes, sir. It is not cheap. I laugh because if I could have gotten here right before COVID, we could have saved probably about 40% on everything. Because it seems that it doesn't matter what it is, it went up in price. And I joke with some of our manufacturers who are all good friends that I know that some of your materials have gone down in price, but your price has not. So we're wondering when the COVID pricing is going to go away. But yeah, we have full support from our board, and being member owned. We get direction from a elected board from the community. And so what's exciting about that is that our board wants to see these changes, and they fully support them. So it's just a matter of being, for us, transparent with them, explaining what's the return on investment, how much is it going to cost, how long will it take to get it in. And their biggest thing is when you say you're going to do it, produce. And I think that's one of the biggest things you can do any utility actually is when you come up with an idea, whether it's good or bad, be transparent about it, tell what it's supposed to do. If it doesn't work at the end, right, we took a chance on it. But if we do our research correctly, we spend time with other utilities, read papers, go to conferences, learn as much as possible. Hopefully we can be successful. And our board has been excited so far about the things that we're doing.
Yeah, I always felt that one of the biggest barriers to opportunity was that first step of just the leap of faith, if you will, of trying something new. And what's the worst case that can happen if it's piloted and if it's a controlled environment. The worst case that you're going to learn out of it is learn something that didn't work, and that's a benefit to everything else. So it's really cool that you're hearing about you're exploring those different avenues. And you talked a little bit about Wake in your previous career. Wake is obviously Raleigh is exploding with growth, with influx of people from outside of the state that are learning about Raleigh, learning about North Carolina, and I'm assuming that influx of populace from across the country, probably the world, is also impacting your customer base positively as well. I was just looking online, about 35,000 customers or accounts, and then about 2 to 3% growth, customer growth in year over year. Is that an accurate statement, or is it? Do you see that forecast changing?
Yeah, we're fortunate. I would say, on the north or the southwest side of Raleigh. And so we do have the growth, not as high as theirs. Some of our counties are not as positive about growth as
Mm-hmm.
what the counties over there are right now. And I think we're going to come around. I think it's about setting things up correctly.
Yeah.
And the great part is we do have some cities, municipalities that are excited about growth. So the main growth we're getting right now are in areas that are being annexed by municipalities. And luckily, the IOU of the area is kind of built out in their territory. So we're seeing some pretty heavy growth. And so, these new projects and everything, while we may be a little bit behind, the great part is we get to start off on the right foot. We get to put these things in at the right time, not come back 5 years from now and say, man, I wish I'd done it differently. But we are seeing that growth. We're getting a little bit more industrial growth, which is exciting as far as, return on investment for our members and being able to share that profit with them. And so the residential growth is coming right behind that. We've got some areas coming in now, and we're happy to get some underground. We've got a lot of overhead miles that we have to take care of.
Yeah.
So getting a little bit of underground will help with our reliability at the same time.
Yeah, and long term, sustainability of that, just operability of the grid. Obviously underground has its challenges, but it is the gold standard for just day to day until it's not, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, everybody loves it. We just tell them, it's 5 to 10 times the cost, and when an outage occurs, it's twice the time.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to maintain your right of way around that equipment too. I know I worked at Brunswick Electric before this, which is obviously a very high growth on the coast. And we had an initiative for the past 2 years, and they still got it going, to actually go in and, we'll say, reclaiming our right of way.
Mm-hmm.
Around our switch gears and equipment and everything, because number one, it degrades the metal when you've got everything on the top of it. But more than that, in the middle of the night, when we can't safely identify equipment,
Mm-hmm.
switches, whatever, it takes longer to restore. And so we've had some success there. We did while I was there. We actually worked with the HOAs. So instead of going out and just cutting the bushes in the middle of the night, our right of way coordinator did an excellent job of reaching out proactively and saying, hey, we want to do this. And instead of using our normal contract partners, we've got a landscaper. They do this on a daily basis in your yards, at your houses. We're going to pay them to come in and do this properly, leave what we can, try not to cut everything to the ground where it looks terrible. We'll haul it all off. And so we were able to work with them, which I thought was a pretty great idea and a solution, rather than, because when we go out in the middle of the night, and even my background when I was in operations, it's coming down with a chainsaw, and we're going to pile it up very nicely in front of the equipment and leave it for you to clean up.
Yeah.
Because it was, it's the old, it was never supposed to be there to start with. But at the end of the day, a big green box in somebody's yard, nobody really likes that.
Yeah. That's a big problem.
A lot of focus on reliability, I assume. And
yes, sir. That is definitely a focus for us. Our reliability was ticking in the wrong direction 2 years ago, and we've made some pretty heavy changes to that. And then we're making some adjustments, like we spoke briefly on earlier, to how we do our right-of-way management, because the old school cycle trimming, just trim every few years, really doesn't do everything that we need it to. We're excited about trying to be, we'll say, a little bit innovative in that area as we create a new integrated vegetation management plan. And we have an excellent right-of-way supervisor who spent pretty much his full career at one of our contract partners. and then decided to come over and work for us. And the great part is he has so much experience, but he's excited about innovation. He's excited about it. We've gone away from our normal vendors for technology, and we've actually got a new vendor that's actually creating an iPad version work order system, so we can actually track that with our contract partners through right away. So all of our vendors are great. The technology vendors that we use at cooperatives have an excellent service order system, and it works really well for our line personnel, which is what it's meant for, right? Meter changes, power quality issues. But when it comes to right away, you essentially get a miscellaneous ticket that says check right away. And it really doesn't have a GPS. It doesn't have a lot of pictures, but this vendor that we're implementing actually right now, we're going to be able to create the orders here, be able to track them, and we're dropping them to the iPads of our hotspot crews, our hourly crews that are doing tree trimming. And then we can tell what's being done and be able to work with them. Plus, they get a little more information than just go check this area. We can tell them exactly what tree to cut so we don't end up with 10 we didn't need and miss the one we did need. So
Yeah.
that's our first change in that area besides working on our cycle. And so they're super excited about that.
So Brian and I go across the country and see a lot of utilities going to a shorter cycle to address the reliability problem. And most are disappointed in a few years. You're going the other direction. So what's the plan or the change you got going?
Well, check back with me in a few years, make sure I'm still employed, and we'll see if it was a good one or not. But so we currently, and have been for quite a while, we'll say supposed to be on a 3-year cycle, and that's ground to as high in the sky as we can reach. If we got too much overhang, we'll figure out that's kind of a separate project to take something out. But with the giraffes and everything, sky trims about 65 feet, I would say, is about as much as you're going to get. But we are already moved it back to a 4-year cycle, and that was a little bit dealing with some delays that we were having, some carryovers. We kind of moved. It looks like what we're going to do is move towards a 5 to 6 year average cycle, we'll say. But
that's an
like I
intentional
told,
move.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
And it's not just about budgets. It's actually I joke with the guys and I say a tree limb that's 2 foot from the tree is still 13 foot from the line or 12 foot from the line, and a tree limb that's 4 foot from the tree is still 10 foot from the line. So if we're cycle trimming at 3 or 5 years, we're really not doing as much by just catching the side. What we want to do is get the things that are growing from the bottom. We want to get the dead trees that are outside the right of way and the live trees that are leaning over. We have a lot of hardwoods in our area along with pines, and the hardwoods have that shallow root system, and it only takes one good wind with a heavy tree at the top and it's going to fall. And when it does, it's cross arms, it's wire, it's multiple poles if they've got any age to them. And it's a whole lot, we'll say, more cost efficient to go out there and spend a day taking that tree down that the member reported to us than to wait to the middle of the night and let it break 3 or 4 poles and we have to call 3 or 4 crews in. So hopefully what we're doing turns out positive for me and us. But I think it will. I've always been around a 5 to 6 year cycle in North Carolina. That's what we've always tried to stick with, 6 max. And that's just based on the species that we have here, the soil, the acidity, the rot that we get from moisture, depending on where you're at in the state. And so I think if we move back to that, we will actually be accomplishing something. I think our 3-year cycle was great to say we did it. But from a cost standpoint, we were spending a lot of money essentially riding by and trimming limbs, and that wasn't really helping our right of way.
Yeah.
Right. So did you say you have the members helping identify your hazard trees or risk trees?
Yes, sir. In the first, I say 6 months, every right of way report that came out, it was tree, 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 tree. So first thing we did was, okay, fix our OMS, our outage management system, and it's tree inside right of way, dead or alive, tree outside right of way, dead or alive. We need all those categories so we can do some statistics and some data analytics in the future once we have enough. And then we put out in our magazine, we've got a magazine called Carolina Country that all cooperatives put out. And inside of it, there's the statewide stuff. And then there's about 4 to 6 pages that each cooperative gets to do individually. but we put out a market thing to say, tell us about a tree that you think is a danger tree. We explained what they were. And we had over 100 trees, 120 trees get reported in less than 30 days. And I think the percentage is 99% were absolutely a danger tree and need to be taken down. So then you've got a set 3-year contract of cycle trimming with just an hourly crew that does hot spotting. Now you're trying to make adjustments to go take out all these danger trees. But our right-of-way supervisor has found a way to do it, and we've hit all the worst ones, we'll say, and we're still working on the others. But we're continuing to ask our members for their help, and it's great because they're out. They may be hunting on a piece of property and see something. It may be in their yard. It may be anywhere. And the good part is if a member calls in and says, "Hey, I've got 100-year-old oak that's leaning towards the line," and we go to cut it, it's a positive thing. If we just show up and we start cutting that tree that's been there forever and it's beautiful when it's green, it's a negative. So we really appreciate the members calling in and that great relationship that we have with them, because we're taking it down and then we're also doing everything we can to haul it off. Because if we catch one in the middle of the night and it tears down poles, most likely we're leaving that tree where it is, and you got to figure out what to do with it. And it's pretty expensive to have trees hauled as a individual.
So what portion of your outages were in those 4 categories? Test your memory
trees
here.
Trees and squirrels do not like electric utilities in our state, we'll say. I think it happens in a lot of southern states, but those two, let's just say that tree and squirrel was pretty much the only 2 categories almost, besides weather. We'll say we put weather down a lot, but
Yeah.
I think the weather blows squirrels into the line and blows trees over. So
yeah. That was going to be my follow-up, is that weather usually dictates that something else caused the issues for the most part. So
yeah, we were very fortunate to hire a new VP of Engineering Operations from a pretty innovative cooperative in Georgia, Carroll EMC. They have excellent reliability, have had some growth, and just done a lot of things with technology. And so he decided to come up here and work with us for an opportunity for growth. And he actually ran their control center. And so when it comes to the OMS and statistics and data, he's excellent about trying to get the right categories. And the first thing he did was about like me when we got here, and all we saw every day was weather, all the way down the Excel file that told the outage report. And we're like, no, something else caused the outage. The weather may have been whatever it was, but that's a whole different category. The weather is sunny, raining, winter, wind, storm, that's fine. But what caused it? Did the fuse blow? What was the equipment? And then was it a tree? Was it a squirrel? Was it old equipment? Just failure? I mean, all those things are fine. We just want to know. We're not blaming anybody.
Yeah.
I think that was one of our biggest things we had to get across is it's not anyone's fault. We run an AC electric system, and it's going to have outages. It is what it is. Underground, overhead, transmission, doesn't matter. It's going to go out at some point in time. Let's just figure out if we can be a little proactive and maybe have less outages.
Yeah. And in order to do that, you have to understand what causes them granularly to be able to prevent, right? And so that's the big thing that we're seeing in the industry right now, is just to get more intelligent with the technology integration and understanding of what it means to operate a grid, and the impacts thereof. So,
well, we have all these tools. We have what I consider to be one of the most innovative or nicest metering system, AMI system, that was put in right before, started during COVID. So it was in before I did, and it has a full analytics suite. And I would say, like, besides logging in and maybe getting one canned report, we're missing so much with it. And then our OMS system has the ability to do down to the span. And now, how great would it be to have 5 years of data showing the span that went out and what caused it, so that maybe you could go back and say, these 75 spans on our system or those areas are the worst tree outages that we have. Should we do some proactive undergrounding? Right.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get to. It's wet. The trees are just rotting. Then the next one grows into the right of way and it falls over. But without that, detailed data, it's pretty hard to do that. You're kind of shooting yourself or taking a shot to say, let's just go bury this half mile. And then it turns out it really wasn't that bad to start with.
Yeah.
But a mile over here, right behind a neighborhood, that's very difficult to get to. Gates, you have to have property access. Takes 3 hours just to get to the line. Goes out 15 times a year, and we missed on that. So we're trying to use some of that stuff, and I know that there's a lot of utilities doing it. So we're watching the industry pretty hard right now. With us being a little bit behind in some technology areas, we get to see where others have tried things, see if it actually works, then make that great financial decision of what to do first. But the next 24 to 48 months for Piedmont, at least, is going to be highly innovative, fast paced, and hopefully rewarding for our membership and our employees.
Yeah, and on that roadmap, so what are the big ticket items that are on the next couple of years?
Well, right now, we just put in a new engineering staking software. We had one that was pretty aged, and we weren't getting the full support because it wasn't one of the big names, so they hadn't done a lot of growth. Brand new SCADA system,
Nice.
to me, one of the best ones, at least for cooperatives, with surveillance, and we're excited about that. We're finishing all the communications inside of our substations. So we actually have a fiber ring for substations, but only 60% of our subs were actually talking back to the office in our old SCADA system. And inside of that, maybe only 30% of the equipment. So the next year, 2 years, our goal is to finish the full SCADA system and then make sure that every piece of equipment that has the ability to speak to the office and give us fault data to be able to identify areas of concern is talking to us, so that our control center can actually be what would be a real true defined control center. And then when our linemen or our personnel are headed out, we can give them so much information while they're driving. That's what myself and some of our engineering team that's come from other places, that's what we're used to. So we're excited about that. We're upgrading controls. We're putting in the new software to be able to track service orders, work orders for our right-of-way crews. So we're excited about that also. And I'm trying to think what other things. Pretty much any technology. We're working on data analytics. I think that's one of the big buzz terms right now in the industry. I think some of us have been doing data for a long time. It's just a matter of what tool we had. I'm used to Access Database. I can't run all these new tools they have because I don't get to work anymore, I guess is what people say.
You're the decision maker now.
That's yeah. But to see what you can do with that data and be able to analyze it is exciting. And I've got some excellent friends at some cooperatives that are a little bit ahead of us, and I'm excited seeing what they're doing with it. There's some ones like Delaware Electric in Delaware, the only co-op. I joke with, they always love to say they're the best co-op in the state, and they're all my friends, but I'm like, you're the only co-op in the state, so yeah, you're the best. But they have done some data analytics using Overstory satellite imagery that is beyond what I thought they could do.
Yeah.
And the way they're doing their right of way now, utilizing that information and helping with their reliability was excellent to start with. But what they're doing with that information is exciting to see. And so I'm hoping to come right behind them with, whatever partners our team ends up choosing.
Yeah, that's
sorry. We conserve energy. My lights go off like every 10 minutes.
Well, this is a great lead into one of the questions I had about
your an outage.
No, it's no outage. We just love to conserve light bulbs, I guess. That's
nice. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. The Overstory, the satellite integration piece. We've really seen. We've been watching that market for quite some time now, and it's really advanced quickly in the last probably 12 to 24 months, 36 months. And I think the AI integration piece has really helped with that. But I think that satellite vendors are just starting to recognize like what the true folly is for just operating and what they need to be doing to help solve for those problems. Obviously, their main focus right now is trees, and trees is the main impact. But I think that that's still an evolving industry, to say the least. And then the integration of analytics, really, to understand what we're doing, what's happening, what does it mean? We take as a human perception of what we see as a problem of tree fell, we should go do something. But is that the true story? And until you step back to that 20,000 foot view, no pun intended, you start to really piece together all the different intricacies associated to what's going on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. And then how does that forecast into your grid investment, your reliability, your resiliency, maybe wildfire mitigation that's on the roadmap? All those things start to come in together as one cohesive ideology rather than the segmentation that we've seen historically.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment about the 20,000 foot view because, at a cooperative our size with less than 100 employees, a lot of contract partners, we work together a little bit more closely. But I've worked at some places in the IOU where we get kind of siloed. But it was great to hear from an IOU a few weeks ago, and then a cooperative actually 5 years ago, I believe it was, at a smart grid utility conference. They had chosen to use LiDAR for their right of way. And what I appreciated about it was, I asked them, I said, what else are you getting from it? Because they just spoke about their LiDAR for right of way maintenance. But they were like, oh man, we're getting encroachments, on our transmission lines. We're getting infrared at the same time. We figured out a way to put an infrared camera on there. And I'm like, so you make one flight, and now almost every group in the utility gets some benefit from it. Yeah. And so it's one of those things, like I really like the satellite imagery. I've not done it. I've looked at a pilot. I've watched some other cooperatives that had success. And then you got the LiDAR side. Which one's going to come out on top? And I think it depends on what you need from it. What can you get out of it? And can you even fly in some of those areas? I know there's parts of everybody's system that you might not be able to get the true flight that you need, but to be able to get more information out of it, we're doing we'll call it a joint use audit this year. The engineering firm that we're working with made an excellent point. There's some people I actually used to work with, and they were like, hey, while we're there, we'll give you a full inventory of the pole. We'll tell you everything. And we'll also look at your right of way while we're there. And we'll tell you almost span by span what you got. And so, hopefully we can use some of that information of one-sided cutting, two-sided cutting, no cutting to help set up some contracts to where, like right now, you put out a contract and you say it's 275 miles per year. Yeah. But it turns out that this year's only 150 miles of cutting. And next year is actually 274 miles of cutting. Mm-hmm. So your budgets are up, down, up, down. And how great would it be to be able to equalize that and be able to get the same impact every year with the same amount of money instead of going up and down and making costs spread out? Because right now, I think that all utilities are facing high cost in pretty much every area, and it's going to continue to go up, which affects rates. And I always joke with, when Netflix sends out the email that says, we're going up 10%, or your cell phone bill comes out and says, we got a new fee. Nobody really says anything. But when we come out and say we need 1.2% energy rate, it's the worst thing in the world, right? Yeah. Like, $3 a month and your lights are on 99.9% of the time and your air conditioner, your heat's always on. But they don't like it, and I understand. I mean, I don't want to see cost increases either, but we've got to find a way to do more with less. Mm-hmm. I think that's our biggest thing right now in our industry, is to do as much as we can with exactly what we have and try and stabilize the market a little bit.
Yeah.
That idea of not sending each group within the utility, sending somebody out to the same pole, trip after trip, combining that into one data collection processes would be big efficiency improvement.
It's massive.
Hopefully so. Hopefully it's not one of those, data warehouses that nobody looks at. That's what we want. Yeah, that's like the main goal, right? When you write your charter for whatever you're going to do, is that we will create a data warehouse and we will turn the lights on inside of it and look at what's in it. Like, we're not just going to have a lot of information and do nothing with it. That's our goal. Otherwise, you might as well just continue operating the way you are right now. Yeah. Because you're not giving a benefit to the employees, the company, or the membership for us. So
the idea of taking full advantage of the data, there is so much data anymore, and
yes, sir. It's tremendous what all is out there. We're excited for it to see where it goes for us.
Yeah, and even with the data too, Phil, to your point, and to the other discussion we had earlier, but the data, people are always saying data is good, data is important, data is this and that. Data is only as good as the interpretation or the goal that you've set forth to use it for, right? And to your point about the data warehouse, and I've worked with utilities all over the country and North America, and they've got mountains of data. And then you go back 5 years and this data is different. And then you're like, what does that mean? And everyone at the utility is like, we really don't know, because the guy that made that's gone, he retired and this and that. And so you have to not only set up the data ecosystem for today and tomorrow and then 50 years from now, but you also have to go back and interpret all of the things that have happened that led you to the point in which you're at today. If you have it. If you don't have it, then sometimes that's a benefit, starting from scratch. But it's setting that mindset up out of the gate from a data governance and management perspective to really set the future up for success and really solve for the problems that you're going to be experiencing into perpetuity.
Yep.
Squirrels, they're not going anywhere. Trees are not going anywhere.
There's a cooperative in Virginia that's done an excellent job with data, to where they've actually created a service, and they're offering that service to other cooperatives now. But what they found when they created it, they had all this data and some of the best data analysts that you could find.
Yeah.
And I used to have one that worked for me at the engineering firm, and they would come up and if you don't understand what you're looking at, it makes it very difficult to use it. And so what they did was they went and pulled what you call internal experts from every group and made them part of the data team.
Yeah.
Now, who would have thought that a utility would pull one of our line technicians out and say, hey, you're on the data team now, which means we're going to teach you how to use, Power BI or whatever tool it is, Databricks, and we're going to show you how to use it, and then you're going to interpret your side of the data so that we use it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they did that, I mean, it just escalated the production and what they could use that for. And I know they've made tremendous improvements to their right-of-way coordination, to how to cut, where the danger trees are, their reliability as far as outages go. So hopefully we can mimic something like that. Smaller place, we do have some people that probably understand the full part of the business. But data in and data out, it's only as good as what you produce. And I used to joke, we had a data analyst that worked at that engineering firm I mentioned, and you could ask them to pull the same report 2 days in a row, and they'd give you two different answers because something would go wrong because there's so much information there. So what we tried to get everybody and them to understand is, it was a small mistake in your query, like you missed one part brought from the wrong place, but please don't ever send this to a client without it being checked. Because if you send this information and you send it to a large IOU and you tell them that their pole replacement cost through the work order system has gone up by 60% in 6 months, all because you clicked on the wrong thing, do you know how quickly that very high dollar contract goes away?
Yep, I've experienced that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's all about verifying what you get. Because, I said earlier, Wake Electric was one of the fastest growing, and it's funny because, Brunswick Electric is one of the fastest growing, and Delaware Electric is one of the fastest growing, and it's all about numbers, right? What data everybody uses. You're the fastest growing by size, or you're the fastest growing in the state, or the fastest growing by population, all these things. At the end of the day, people are moving to our areas, to rural areas. I think they like that. They're kind of moving away from the cities somewhat, and it's given all of us great growth. But my point being that data is what you make of it, I guess is the easy way to say it. But you got to verify and make sure that you're using it correctly.
Yeah. It is the interpretation of. No, go ahead, Phil. You're going to say probably what I was going to say. So.
No, I was going to say, how often do we run into 15 years of data but only use the last year because we have no confidence in what came before.
Yeah, I've done the same.
Yeah, data is important. I think that's one of the evolving pieces of the industry that no one's talking about. It's really changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years, especially with the integration of AI. Data and analytics has become a lot more available to the doers of the world, to your point. And I think that that's best practice, what you were describing in terms of pairing the data analytics teams up with people that actually do the work. There's a big disconnect from the data engineering, data analytics, just software in general. There's a big disconnect from what they're trying to solve for in the real world. And I've been doing a lot of work here with AI and just understanding AI and AI integration, what the capabilities are today, tomorrow, 5 years from now. And one of the biggest disconnects in that space is that the systems that are being designed are designed by people that understand data and software and analytics. But the disconnect is the ideology of how that translates to the real world applicability. And I always use this example, and my grandpa was a good way that I can pick on this, but my grandpa was the type of guy, he could set his hand on a tractor engine and just feel the vibrations and understand what's wrong with it just from that touch. And that touch came from experience of doing something wrong multiple times and learning from it. And so the AI infrastructure, data analytics, all this stuff ties back into that, is how do we connect the dots from this to what's really happening and extract that experience from the workforce. You said you've had linemen and line techs that have been there for a long time. Extracting that knowledge base out of them to see what they've learned, what they've done, what they know not to do, to be able to really refine that process, integrating LiDAR and everything else to make it the best that can be. Because it really is a connection between the real world and this electronic space that we're working in.
Yeah, it's exciting, especially when you work with a group like our line personnel, because they're some of the most intelligent people that you ever work with.
Yeah.
They have so much common sense. That's why, when you go in meetings sometimes with them and everybody's got some new technology and they say, "Oh, this is going to fix this," they chuckle. And I spent a lot of time in operations for years, and I was part of that group. We would chuckle at some of the stuff because you can put there's sometimes there's things you can't fix, and they know it. But when you get a spark in them, like I remember years ago when we put SCADA in another cooperative and we were doing automatic fault prediction, and then we started automatic switching. I was told there's no way you'll get the guys to like it, and it only took a month, and then SCADA was down one day when we were doing switching, and you would have thought that I had changed their whole career path because they were so upset that they had to go to the substation. But how we were successful is we didn't just go in and say this is what it is. We let them be involved the entire time. I mean, this is back in 2013, 14. They all had iPads and iPhones. Every single qualified line person had one of those. And so they could pull up on their iPad. They could see the full AMI system. They could send voltage alerts to see what was on it. They got the fault prediction location sent to their iPad. They could see SCADA on their iPad. Now, how crazy is that? 12 years ago, they could actually see when you said something was open or you put a ground trip block or whatever on there, they could see it actually happen, or a hotline tag for their safety. They could pull it up and verify, yes, dispatch control center did put my hotline tag on. So, I don't ever want to hear that people aren't going to embrace it. I think it's about how you present it. And I think if you can bring that data and show, that, hey, we're paying attention. We see that you go to this same line every year, at least 3 times a year for a tree. We're trying to make a change. They'll be excited and they'll help you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to bring them along for the journey. And like, it goes back to my statement, like they're the doers, and that's what we're trying to replicate and make improvements on. And so many times I've seen, and I used to work for, again, all over the country, but I've seen so many times where these data integration roadmaps are generated, with the data teams or the executive level, and they never bring along the folks that it truly impacts the greatest and the largest percentage of your workforce, right? So, I'm really happy to hear that you guys have taken that into consideration and bring them along for the journey. That way, it just helps with the change management out of the gate.
Oh yeah, I was on a work management system in installation one time, and I got brought in as the expert of the asset management part of it, and I was supposed to be part of the change management implementation to the whole teams. And it was funny because when I was brought in, I thought I was being brought in to be part of how are we going to develop this.
Yeah.
But it was only to here, Jordan, this is what it is and this is how it works. You need to go show it to people. And I laughed and I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't even come close to what our current tools do. And they were like, well, this is what you have. And I'm like, you're talking a complete failure on the first day to the first employee. And then you want me to go be positive about it. Like that never goes well.
Yeah, that's a tough sell. And you're at that point, you've already invested all the infrastructure. And so it's like that the ship has left the harbor and it is on track for the iceberg and there's no turning it back. Right.
That's right.
Yeah, it's another problem where they get overly invested in this technology and then you get into the implementation or development process of it, and you've already got a change order for $1 million, $2 million, and you're like, this ain't going the way it was proposed in the sales pitch, man. So,
yeah, that new engineering tool that we put in here, as difficult as it was for me, because I've had the opportunity to work with pretty much every work management system that I've ever seen as far as electric utilities. And whenever we made the decision when I first got here that we needed to make a change, I let the engineering team meet all the vendors, do the pilots, and I let them make the decision. And now I sat in my office, as you called me, the decision maker, and it was very difficult because I heard them in the conference rooms and everything, and I was very nervous about what decision would get made. But at the end of the day, whatever they choose is going to be their tool, not mine. I don't get to design lines anymore. I don't get to work inside the tool. And luckily, I think that we picked the right vendor by far, and they loved that vendor and they're excited about it. But because they were involved, the whole training and implementation that we're putting in place right now is, for the most part, seamless, as much as technology can be seamless, we'll say.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, I have a feeling we could keep on talking. But I want to be respectful of your time. However, you got a lot of new, interesting things, presuming you're still working there a year from now.
I hope so.
I hope you'll come back and update us. Tell us what you've learned and what your experience was.
Well, that would be fun. I'm a ROI, return on investment, and I'm fully engaged in going back and looking where we're successful. You know, again, if you're transparent with your board or employees, I think it's important that you do that. So I'd be more than willing. This is my first podcast. So I appreciate y'all inviting me.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know how I would do. I get pretty nervous usually, but I would love to come back and talk about some of these things that we're doing, especially on our right-of-way side, because we're really excited about that and what we're going to be able to do, because we have the funding, we have the support from our board. Now let's use that funding to the best of our ability and hopefully make some huge impacts in our reliability as far as trees go. So I really appreciate y'all's time and for the invitation.
Yeah, you got board on board. You guys are on board. Your team's on board. Sounds like you have a lot of opportunity.
Well, we're excited, but again, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here with y'all and enjoyed meeting both of you too.
Yeah, likewise, Jordan.
Very good. Thank you very much, Jordan. Thanks for joining us today. Follow us on LinkedIn for updates and to tune in again to the Trees and Lines podcast.